what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here will be looking at the Gasparilla Bowl between Georgia Tech and UCF. Knights 4.5-point favorites. Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN, Friday, December 22nd. Looking at these offenses, certainly a big year for Brent Key's unit. Haynes King came over and kind of reestablished himself from Texas A&M. A big-time season, 2,755 yards passing, 26 touchdowns, another 9 scores on the ground with 648 yards. His dual-threat prowess, Nick, has been terrific for this football team. Biggest problem, though, is his arms really gotten him in trouble, though, as well. 15 interceptions, had 4 picks against Clemson. Against Georgia, he protected the ball, but only completed 55%. So the numbers through the air have not been great. He only has one game over 210 yards since, September, and that was, 287 against North Carolina, a game that the offense completely exploded in. So they're not picking up big chunks of yards by any means. Eric Singleton Jr. has been a phenomenal freshman, 706 and 47 receptions. Malik Rutherford, an already talented ball player, 44 grabs for 462. And they also have 3 more guys over 20 receptions. So it's mainly going to be that duo, Singleton and Rutherford. This has been a nice passing attack, in terms of being at least productive, right? Certainly a lot better than they've been in the past couple of seasons. But the interceptions, the lack of explosiveness has certainly been a bit of an issue over the last, 2.5 months or so.
Brent Key's work on this offense was noticeable from game one when they put 34 points on Louisville and hung in there in a game that I didn't expect them to really score a whole lot of points at all. 31.2 points per game is a solid number, 5.39 yards per attempt on the ground. Really solid, 6.4 yards per play. Another good number. This is a lot of nice numbers here for this offense. Haynes King having a solid season, despite the pick, 61% comp rate, 2,700 yards passing, 26 scores, 15 interceptions. Not great with the 15 picks, but I think King has really kind of come alive since coming over from A&M. His career looked kind of dead in the water after having some good games in the past, specifically a good game against Alabama that everyone remembers. But he was solid at Georgia Tech this season, 648 on the ground, 9 scores, 6 yards per carry. Good numbers. Jamal Haynes, really solid as well, nearly 1,000 yards rushing, 6 yards per carry, and 7 scores for him, plus 20 receptions and a touchdown out of the backfield. So he's a good kind of dual threat player, Haynes. Singleton and Rutherford are 2 talented players as well. Singleton 706, 15 yards per grab, 6 scores. Malik Rutherford 462, 10.5, and 3 scores for him. Dominic Baylock has looked okay as well, 337, 16 yards per grab, and 2 scores. Christian Leary, who played at Alabama in the past 25 receptions, 309, 12.4, and 2 scores. This is an offense I think is pretty balanced. I do like what I've seen out of this Georgia Tech offense. I've been quietly surprised. 31.2 points per game, not a bad number in Brent Key's first year.
Yeah, and they also have a nice running game. Not just King, getting vertically, but they also have Jamal Haynes, who's been an impressive player for them. This is an offensive line certainly has performed a little bit better than we imagined, especially in pass protection. So certainly a nice unit for them. They've gotten some nice players up on the interior of their line that have been good. Looking at UCF, this is a team that should have probably been better on offense, 32.5 points per game. John Ross Plumlee did battle injuries at points in the season. 2,073 passing, 13 touchdowns, 8 picks, 473, and 5 scores. Some pretty disappointing production from him. But the big news is R.J. Harvey, 1,296 yards, 16 touchdowns. He's been the savior for this offense. Johnny Richardson, 557 in the score for him. 233 per game on the ground for UCF. Obviously, this is a team that loves to run the football. Plumlee, he's a guy who's also very good with his speed. So this is certainly a very impressive part of this unit. They have plenty of talent around with Javon Baker and Kobe Hudson. They both have 850-plus receiving yards. Xavier Townsend next up with 316. So it's really just the same couple guys, Baker, Hudson, Harvey, and then Plumlee dishing it out to him, Nick. This is a highly talented offense that kind of disappointed this season.
This is a bit disappointing for this offense. Certainly, Gus Malzahn is known for his really talented offenses. We saw that in the past at Auburn. 32.5 points per game for this team. Still productive, 7.13 yards per play, 5.65 Rushing yards per attempt are good numbers. Plumlee, I'm disappointed in his performance. Plumlee is a player that I love. I've always adored him since his Ole Miss days. So see him not have the greatest season has been disappointing. Of course, he has battled injuries. I do love John Rice Plumlee a lot. 2,000 yards passing, 13 scores, 8 picks, 473 in the 5 scores on the ground in the 9 games. If he's healthy and playing at full strength in this bowl game, that can certainly help out this offense. He's a really talented quarterback and a great leader for this team. They do have some other talented players. R.J. Harvey's been great on the ground, a savior for this team. 1,300 yards rushing, 16 scores, 6.1 yards per carry, 13.6 yards receiving, 17 catches, 231, and a score for him. Good numbers out of the backfield. Nice dual threat. Javon Baker, nearly 1,000 yards receiving, 22.5 yards per grab. Great number there. 6 touchdowns for him. Kobe Hudson, 42, 853, 20.3, and 7 scores for him. Xavier Townsend, 316, 10.2, and 3 touchdowns for him as well. RJ Harvey, Alec Holler are all talented players. Randy Pittman, he's a solid player as well with the 1 touchdown and the 215 yards receiving. This is an offense that is balanced at times, right? They do have some nice production. You wanted more out of a Gus Malzahn offense, but nearly 500 yards per game and 32.5 points is still pretty solid for this unit.
Yeah, you certainly want to look at the offensive line as well. Left tackle Tyler Grable, he's been great on that left side for them. The left guard position's really been in flux all year long, but for the most part, they've been pretty sound in pass protection, one of the better ones in the country, despite the right side being a little bit of an issue at times. You look at these defenses, though. Georgia Tech, their top player, Kyle Kennard's not going to be playing in this game, it appears. He's in the transfer portal, 30.5 points per game for the Yellow Jackets. And this is a team that's, been better against the pass. And I certainly expected that with some nice safeties in Clayton Powell-Lee and LaMiles Brooks. 2,500 yards allowed this year, 212 a game, 13 picks, the 16 touchdowns. That's some nice stuff there from them. Jalen King has stepped up with 4 interceptions. Amari Harvey has another 2. They've had 9 different players reported interceptions. The secondary certainly has been impressive this season, but for me, it's certainly going to be the concern of not being able to generate negative plays as Kennard led them in the TFL. Paul Mala at linebacker with 8. Eddie Kelly, another 5. Zeke Biggers has 4. Daquan Dose, he's been a good player. He's one of the more talented players on this roster. But the defensive line was certainly kind of in par with what you expected, and that was for them not to be all that productive and for them to struggle against the run. They've got 225 yards and 28 touchdowns on the ground. Those are some big numbers. I know Malzahn's loving that coming into this game. They've allowed 200-plus yards and, 5 out of the last 6 games, the game against Virginia being the only outlier. So this seems like a big opportunity for UCF to run all over Georgia Tech, Nick, and without the guy coming off the edge named Kennard, create negative plays, it's going to be much harder to slow them down.
Definitely looks like a great opportunity for this UCF Knights offense to really have their way on the ground. 30.5 points per game, giving up 5.41 rushing yards per attempt for this defense given up. This is a unit that has some solid pieces. Obviously, losing a guy in Kennard is a huge loss. He's very talented. He's a lot of their sack production. Their next highest sack getter is Paul Manola with 2 sacks, right? And Andre White Jr. has 2.5 sacks. White has 24 total tackles. Manola, 59 total tackles, 8 tackles for loss. The production is really not there outside of that. Eddie Kelly has 37 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. Daquan Dose has 34 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. This unit has not been super productive. They struggled against the run at times, especially this front part of the defense, and that's certainly concerning when you're playing against a very talented offense that has nice dual threat capabilities.
Coming into the year, I feel like the secondary would be like a lone bright spot for them, and it certainly was, and they were even better than I thought they would be. So I'm pretty impressed with that. Keenan Johnson at corner, Miles Sims, some of these guys doing some good productive work for them. So I'm just very happy to see Key get these guys pointed in the right direction. Look at the UCF defense, 25.4 points per game allowed. This is a team themselves that have not been great against the run, but they've been stout against the pass. And, they certainly have productive players playing in this game, though. Tremont Morris Brash, 18.5 TFL for him. Lee Hunter, Malachi Lawrence, all 3 have double-figure TFLs. Jason Johnson, a veteran linebacker. You got a freshman up front, John Walker. So they have some nice productive player. Walter Yates at linebacker with 77 stops. I'm very happy with that front 7 performance, 186 rushing allowed per game. Though certainly isn't as desirable. West Virginia, Cincinnati, they both put up, 250-plus rushing. Kansas had almost 400. So there's games where they've had epic collapses here. Turnaround had 52 rushing yards on defense allowed against Oklahoma State and Ollie Gordon, the Doak Walker Award winner in a game they won by 42 points. And, the final 3 games of the season, the run defense was certainly much better. Give up 190 to Texas Tech and a 1-point loss on the road. Dominated Houston. What version do you think we're going to get of the run defense here, Nick? Because they're going to be facing one that likes to attack the edges and ones that can hurt you up the middle. But when they, look that good against Ollie Gordon, that's something you got to take note of.
This is a weird defense that's been hit or miss, but I've been impressed when they've been playing on their game. They disappointed me at times, but overall, this defense has had some nice success. 25.4 yards points per game, 4.84 yards per attempt on the ground. That's a solid number right there. 5.77 total yards per play. Like you said, they have had good games against star backs like Ollie Gordon, shutting him down, but they've also struggled in other games against the run and really had bad times against Baylor in that second half, struggled against Kansas on the ground as well, and West Virginia. So it certainly is hit or miss for this defense. There are some nice players in this defense. I think there is some serious good production in the middle. Guys like Walter Yates, 77 total tackles. Jason Johnson, 101 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. Nice production out of Johnson. He's a really good wide linebacker. Lee Hunter's another solid player, 64 total tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks for him. Tremont Morris Brash in the middle. He's a great player for this team. 50 total tackles, 18.5 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks. Malachi Lawrence, 26 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks. So there's some nice production in the backfield. They can certainly get back there, stuff the run, and make the offenses uncomfortable.
Yeah, another veteran in Josh Salazar as well. They have some nice pieces up front that I think should do a good job. They've faced plenty of tough rushing attacks this year. They saw Boise State early in the season, so game plan should be pretty simple for them. Won't have to dig too hard. The secondary's been very good this season. They've never really been a liability. They've allowed 11 touchdowns, 11 picks, interception in 4 straight games coming into this one. They've not allowed 300 yards in a game this season. Oklahoma had their way with them for the most part. Texas Tech certainly had some success, and that was really it. I mean, they shut opponents down. Top cornerback, Corey Thornton, though, he's in the portal. He's been their top coverage guy this year. Nikai Martinez with 3 picks, though. He's going to be expected to step up in this one. For the most part, it's been just Thornton, I guess, is the standout. Everyone else has just been kind of by committee. Brandon Adams has played a lot, though, so they certainly want to see him step up. They're facing those 2 good receivers in, Singleton and Rutherford. Do you have any concerns with them getting gashed in this one with Thornton not likely to play?
Losing Thornton is certainly a big blow for this defense. He's a very talented player with his 9 pass breakups, 3 picks. I think, Brandon Adams could step up, 4 pass breakups, 17 total tackles for him. A guy like Nikai Martinez, 50 total tackles, 3 picks, and a pass breakup. He could step up. It certainly is a little concerning, which is why when we get to our scores, you'll see in a second that we picked a high-scoring game here, because I think the secondary does have some opportunities to give up some big plays. But I'm not overly concerned. I think they have enough guys to step up and get the job done.
Looking at the final thoughts and the prediction for Georgia Tech, the run D has to make some good plays. Their own vertical run needs to be strong. For UCF, literally that's the same thing for them. Just continue to run the ball and be dominant. And you want to force Haynes King into mistakes. And I think that'll ultimately be the difference maker. Something he's very prone to do with a large amount of interceptions. I think we're going to see a high-scoring game here. Plenty of explosive run plays. I don't think you're going to see too many 8-minute marches by either of these offenses to chew up clock. So I think you're going to see a lot of points. 44-38. Certainly a close score. UCF would cover, though. I don't see how they lose this game. A quick little travel over. Nice little from Orlando over here. Georgia Tech, certainly not a big travel for them either. But it's going to be a bit of a home game, I'd say, in Tampa for the Knights. And I think Plumlee and his talented weapons are just going to be too much for the Yellow Jackets in what figures to be an exciting contest.
I like UCF in this one a lot. Ticket prices for some of the lower tier bowl games. This is some of the highest ticket prices of any of the lower tier bowl games. It makes sense. Short travel time from Orlando to Tampa, so this makes a whole lot of sense. UCF should be loud and proud at this game. On a Friday evening, the weather will probably be nice down there in Florida, so I think they're going to have a nice crowd out there. Georgia Tech does travel well. They have a nice alumni base as well. I like UCF to win this game. I got a 40-32 score. I think King will make mistakes. I'm expecting 2 to 3 turnovers from King. UCF just going to run the ball, pound the rock, make Plumlee make some plays when he has to, really kind of find that dynamic offense that you see. I think Gus Malzahn is a great coach and heading this team in the right direction in the Big 12. This could be a great opportunity for them to get a bowl win, get above 500 and continue to close out the season on a positive note. Nothing to take away from Georgia Tech, though. I think Brent Key and them have had a fantastic year 1 out there in Atlanta, and things are looking positive. These are 2 programs, in my opinion, that are on the up. They're both heading in great directions right now. This is a bowl game between 2 interesting programs heading in the right direction. I like the Knights in this one, though.
Are you taking high confidence, or are you going to stay in the lower tier?
I think it's going to be towards the top. I'm not going to push it in the high 30s. I think it's, close to about 28, 27 point range is kind of where I'm going to be. I think this is a game that I do have a lot of confidence in. I like the Knights here a lot.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. That's going to be it for today's episode. As always, Nick, appreciate you joining me. Should be a very exciting one here on that Friday evening.
I'm very excited for this game. Really looking forward to this one right before Christmas. A good matchup here.
You guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.
I do like this matchup. I'm excited for this game.